Meanwhile, even though America is now about to commit more resources, it seems, about to commit more resources to the war in Ukraine, despite what Donald Trump originally claimed, that the war would be over within a day, it seems he's more keen on 6 months to a year. That if they send a few more weapons to Ukraine, then America can get more influence in Ukraine than Germany or France or England, who of course would gain more traction with Zelensky than Donald Trump would if Donald Trump was to make a deal immediately. And therefore, just in case, Donald Trump decided the war in Ukraine must continue a bit longer. That's what it seems to me. But not only that, but Donald Trump has now declared that Greenland, that great centre for global warming, as we're told, the rising of the seas comes from Greenland, and Donald Trump has declared that it's an essential asset for the United States of America. And it's a huge place, Greenland, by the way. Enormous piece of territory with huge reserves of certain resources. And so America is now seizing minerals here, rare earth minerals and stuff like that.
Rare earth, yeah. And in
Sorry, is it the way that...
What was that?
Is it the way that America has intentions on Greenland? Is that worse than the way Russia has intentions on Ukraine?
Well, that's the question I'm asking. So if Russia wants to take Ukraine, and that's a bad thing, and that's assuming Russia wants to take Ukraine rather than just stop NATO from taking Ukraine, but let's assume the theoretical argument.
It would be up to Ukraine to join NATO.
Would it be up to Ukraine?
Well, Sweden and Finland join NATO.
Yeah, but Ukraine is not Sweden or Finland. So if Ukraine joins NATO, the Russians basically say, well, that's an existential threat to Russia, and we won't allow it. Just the same as the Americans said, you know, that Cuba can't have nuclear weapons on the border of the United States. It's the same argument. So, and at that time, America was prepared to go to nuclear war over it. So surely the Americans should understand that if they say that Ukraine can join NATO, and that's only a couple of missiles, a thousand miles or so from Moscow, then clearly the Russians are going to be piqued about that.
Well, what gives the Russians the right to say to the Ukrainians, no, you can't join NATO?
Well, it's the same right as saying your tax money shouldn't be spent on making a weapon to kill Russians in Ukraine. Because that's what's happening. Your money and my money is being used by NATO to bomb Russia.
Yeah, but that only comes through a democratically elected parliament.
Well, when did we vote?
Back in July.
What, for a war in Ukraine?
Well, we didn't vote for the war in Ukraine.
So what's the parliament going to do with it then?
Well, the parliament's decided it's going to see that's where the money goes to Ukraine.
So you agree with that, is it?
Well, whether I agree with it or not is irrelevant.
In other words, it doesn't matter what you think.
No, what I'm saying is that if you've got an elected parliament that decides that, you want the individuals...
So if you've got an elected parliament, the state can do whatever it likes.
Yes, they're
and ignore everything you want.
So
for example, they can lock you up, jab you, bomb you, kill you, and all that's fine. Because there's an elected parliament.
So as long as that parliament can be unelected if you like it.
Well, how can you unelect a parliament that's decided by two political parties that have been around for more than a century? In fact, the Tory party is the oldest political party in the world. It's been around for centuries. Long before you had the right to vote, the Conservative Party was around.
Yes.
And the Labour Party, controlled by big business and by a couple of trade union barons, they are the main political party governing politics today in Britain. And you've got no say over what happens in them.
Okay, so who's going to determine...
Who's got more say over the Labour Party? Over the Labour Party.
So who's going to
the members of the party... Hang on, one second. Just one second. Just 1 second.
No, I know you don't want to answer that.
I'm happy to answer it, but I'm only happy to answer it in relation to understanding how power is exercised in the world. Because otherwise, if you just talk about Russia did that, then I can turn around and say America's done that with Greenland.
I couldn't know. I've got no truck.
Or the
with,
Mexican said,
I've
the
got no
Mexican,
truck.
the
I've
Mexican
got no
Prime
truck
Minister,
that we-
the Mexican Prime.
So Donald Trump wants to take over Greenland.
You got no what?
I've got no truck with the idea that Donald Trump taking over Greenland.
Oh, but then I was pointing out that as a comparative relationship with Russia,
Point of information.
the British have gone into one country after another.
Yes, another
British forces,
I'm not saying
British
they were
forces,
virtuous to do
and
that.
British weapons are in Ukraine now.
Point of information.
I think the Ukrainian people have.
The idea that we live in a democracy.
How do you know?
Well, let's put it this way: when you look at the size of the Russian army, if Ukrainians wanted Russia to take over, they would have done so long ago. The Russians would have walked in there and taken over the place in 2 weeks.
Well, I can put another perspective on that as well. Had NATO countries not given weaponry to Ukraine, not given political and economic support to Ukraine, Ukraine would have fallen ages ago.
Yes, and I would.
Right, there we go. Your question, Marwan.
But it's because
Point of
Ukrainian
information.
people
It's not
want it.
really a question. It's a talking point. You talk about the Labour Party having been elected and how we'll have to wait until 2029 at the latest.
I didn't say that.
No, but it might have been implicit in what you were saying.
You might if you assume. Anyway.
But what sort of democracy gives a 2/3 majority in Parliament to a